If you take the national average for real estate, it will definitely provide an incomplete set of data for the average person because they don't live everywhere, they live in one location. So we need to break it down further, understand what's happening in that state and in that city. No matter what country you live in, always do your best to investigate further. So where should you move? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to look at this situation in real estate. We're looking at buying, we're looking at renting, and I want to address this globally. I'll show you the United States statistics, but I want to address this globally. Understand this. Underlying all of these different assets, we have a monetary system that was designed by very, very few people. And these central bankers that are there today in place, and most people don't even know who they are creating the policies that create bubbles that enlarge all the problems that we have, exacerbating all of these issues. It's the central bankers. They create the currency. They decide when to dry up the liquidity, causing recessions, and they are the source of every problem. Let's move into this. 2-bedroom rental housing wages, okay, I'm going to describe it for you just quickly, represents the hourly wage that a household must earn working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year in order to afford the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom rental home without paying more than 30% of their income. Take a look around the United States. It's the usual suspects. Whether that is California, Hawaii, and to a lesser degree, Washington, even New York is here. And you could see, I want to also mention Illinois. For a reason, just a moment. You can see the darker colors is a higher value and so on, okay? So take a look around. I'll show you some more charts in a moment. What I want to address with this is that many people are overburdened by the price they pay for their housing, whether that's the taxes on their house, whether that's the actual home itself. What do they do? Well, some people, they move out further. So if they're living in the city, they can't afford the city, they move to the suburbs. Can't afford the suburbs, move to the rural areas. A lot of people seek jobs, seek another life outside of that state. A lot of people from Illinois have been fleeing and going to other places around, anywhere that they can find a location that's more suitable for them. They're just fleeing in all directions. Now, looking at this here, doesn't give us the overall picture. This is the state as a whole. But I can look at California. I can find affordable places. I can find extremely expensive places like in San Francisco. But the average person generally, I would think, wants to live in a more desirable location. I could go to some of the most terrible parts of California and find some cheap housing. But does the average person want to live there? Not really. You can go around to different cities in different parts of that city, anywhere in the world, find where the major population is located, and I assure you it is probably very, very expensive. Whether you're looking at a place like Manhattan, for example, San Francisco, look at Toronto and Vancouver, anywhere you want to look, London, Sydney, Melbourne, anywhere. These places are all heavy in population and heavy in central bank monetary easing effects. Okay, central bank prints the money, creates inflation in these assets. You're not able to control it necessarily, and it finds its way into one thing or another. In this case here, real estate, we've seen it go into FANG stocks and the equities. It's all a matter of time before they dry up the liquidity and cause a problem for that particular asset. And then, of course, what we've seen is it simply creates a new bubble. There's always a new bubble. States with the largest shortfall between average renter wage and 2-bedroom housing wage. And of course, you can see this whether it's Hawaii, California, other places. It's becoming very difficult for a lot of people to afford their basic standard of living. The struggle to afford modest rental homes is not limited to minimum wage workers. That's the quote there, and I do believe that that is accurate based on everything I've been covering for you here. Hourly wages by percentile versus the 1 and 2 bedroom housing wages. You could see this again. You know, it affects everyone differently. Obviously, the 1% of the world is going to do better than the bottom 90%, but this breaks it down further. I don't really want to get into the details. Let me move on. Now, this breaks it down even further, and I think it's important to be able to see this kind of thing for yourself depending on where you live, or maybe a place that you want to visit and see if that's a place you want to move to. They have a lot of these charts like this as well. Hours at minimum wage needed to afford a 1-bedroom rental home at fair market rent. Taking a look at this being broken down even further. Very, very good. I don't have the details for you, but I just wanted to show you that this is something that you should definitely check out. I will make sure that this link is in the description under sources, okay? So it's just something you have to see for yourself. All right. Most expensive jurisdictions, no question about it. I mean, look, San Francisco, San Jose, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, San Francisco right at the top of the list. Housing wage for 2-bedroom, $60. $60. Now the average person doesn't make that. Not even close. And I will look down this list and practically all of them are California. At least most of them are. It's interesting to see how it goes. The counties, again, almost all California other than Honolulu and Nassau. And the average person believes that they will be okay, that they will be rescued, that there are safety nets available for them, that if everything becomes too expensive, that the government will be there to help them out, that their pension fund will be there, that Social Security and Medicare will be there for them. And I assure you, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it won't be there for you. And that's primarily what this channel is all about. It is preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. The trustees for the Social Security and Medicare trust funds released their annual reports last week, and the takeaway? Despite a strong economy, both programs have large and growing financial deficits. Unfortunately, the gap between spending and revenue for these programs is likely even larger than the official projections show because of assumed but unrealistic cuts in medical care payments rates and the persistently low birth rates of recent years. All right. The Social Security, by the way, I've been telling everybody about this for years, so please understand that I've been talking about this. The Social Security report estimates the program will run out of reserves in 2034, after which benefits would have to be reduced by about 25% to keep spending within available annual revenue. That assumes, everybody, that assumes that everything stays just fine and dandy. Of course, we know that's not the case. Over 75 years, Social Security has an unfunded liability of $13 trillion. I was told by many people to shut my mouth, and this is not bankrupt. It has an unfunded liability of $13 trillion. That's trillion with a T. And guess what? I am not going to shut my damn mouth. People are going to be hurt because they're relying on this, and I'm not going to shut up. Restoring permanent solvency to the program would require raising the payroll tax. How does that sound, everybody? Immediately. From today's combined employer-employee rate of 12% to 15%. Alternatively, Social Security benefits would need to be cut on a permanent basis by about 17%. How do you like that? They're telling you it's bankrupt. They're not going to put a sign outside your door and say, hey, everyone, just to let you know, we're bankrupt. It's not going to happen. You're not going to see that sign. You're only going to get it at the Money GPS. You're not going to see it anywhere else. They're scared to talk about it because they don't want people rioting in the damn streets. And then we have this. The consumption that we have today is astronomical. People have literally no money, but they still want everything. So they buy a home with $1 million mortgage. So they buy a car and finance it and split that financing as far as they possibly can. If they're given 8 years, they'll use 8 years to pay it back. People are getting loans to pay for their vacations now, not credit cards. There are companies that are coming out that'll basically total up. In this article, they talk about it. They figure out a 30% interest rate, but then add that to a bunch of installments. So you know exactly how much it's going to be. They charge you that rate of interest, which is very high, but it doesn't compound. So these people are thinking, okay, I can pay in installments. It's a great idea. I can go on the trip that I desire and so on. If you want to do this, by all means, please do. But this is so disastrous. To add more debt to the levels that we are seeing already, over $1 trillion in credit card debt, 1.5 in mortgage debt. It's unbelievable. Now this here talks about essentially the real estate, and if I remember correctly, I haven't read it for a few days. I've been collecting these articles. Essentially, people who are having some troubles, okay? They can't afford their homes. They're going to have to move out. Well, this company comes in. Right here it says, actually. A company called Unison was offering money in exchange for an ownership stake in the house. So they come in, they say, we're going to take some possession in your house. We'll be able to profit from you, of course. And then you get to keep your house. It's great. We're going to take that burden off your hands. And I think it's good for some people who want that. But there's something wrong. There's something wrong. You shouldn't have to do that. If you need to rent in the first place, that's okay. But what happened to make these people lose their shirts? The economy is booming. I keep hearing it. The economy is booming. Why are all these people losing their shirts? Why does a company like Unison even have to exist? Like I said, it's good for people who need it. But my goodness, why are there so many people suffering? And it's not being acknowledged either, and I'm really tired of it. This here is, well, it's out of the Wall Street Journal, but the font is really small here. So I'm just going to touch on a couple points here. They're talking about unemployment. They're talking about the economic situation in Italy, okay? Because this is a global problem that we're experiencing. And the average person doesn't really realize what happens. They just go out there, they yell and scream on the streets and hope that everything just works out. We've got a problem with unemployment, as I said. Here, the employment rate for Italians under 40 fell every year from 2007 to 2014, supposedly, before flatlining over the past 3 years. Meanwhile, it has risen every year for those between 55 and 64, in part due to an increase in the retirement age. The number of Italians under 34 in absolute poverty, defined as being able to afford basic goods and services, more than doubled between 2010 and 2016 to 10% of people. 10% of people under 34 are in absolute poverty. They can't afford to eat, okay? Big problems. They talk about more in detail about that, but I just wanted to stress the fact that underlying all of these statistics that I show you, there's a real core problem, and it begins with the central banks. They decide what happens every single day. You are watching a movie. You are watching a show. It's a film. Do not believe what you are told. Investigate the truth. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, it helps us support this channel. It helps us support the truth. And that's what I really do appreciate. If you want the financial information that was not taught to you in schools, these 2 books have it all. You will get everything you need to know to be able to make money, to be able to save money, to get that financial education that simply was intentionally left from the school system. If you want to flip through these books, you can do so at Amazon. There are links in the description of this video. If you prefer the audiobook version, you can get that at themoneygps.com. For all of those who are still here, I want to thank you for your time today. Take care.